Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Renaud Adams, and he is a mining industry leader with more than 30 years of global operational and executive experience across the Americas. And throughout his career, he has led major organizations, helping guide strategic growth, operational performance, and major company transformation. And in this episode, we'll discuss the communication challenges between technical and non-technical stakeholders, how technical professionals can present more effectively to mixed audiences, and why storytelling and communication skills are critical for leadership success in highly technical industries. So welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Renaud.
Thank you so much for having me today, Neil. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. First question. What's based on what you do and your vantage point, what issues have you seen in terms of communication between technical and non-technical teams?
Well, I mean, I'm an engineer myself in background, so I'm a mining and mineral processing engineers. As like a lot of people, I've spent my first 10 years of my career, as an engineer and working in the technical matters and operations and build and startup. So everything we were doing was very technical, and you learn in the first portion of your career, to communicate your technical skills and abilities and what you execute. And one day you start doing some management and shifting your career to the more corporate, and then the same topic needs to be completely presented in a different way. And I call it like and the phenomena for scales, and what I do. You really work at different, layer, of the, externally and internally, and the same message needs to be shaped, and in a different ways. And even in the investment community, do you talk to potentially specialists, or you're talking about generalists, it's the same, it's investment community, but a complete different approach. So how to stay and adapt, to each layer, if you will, of of the stakeholders is definitely a challenge for a lot, right? And especially at the early days of your career as a leader or as a manager, and the ability to adapt your message to attract, and keep, the attention of your audience is absolutely crucial. So I can appreciate, the topic here, and I can appreciate, the challenge that goes, because it has been and continue uh, to be something that every CEOs or every leader needs to refine, to really interact properly at different stakeholders, internally, externally.
Yeah, 100%. Renaud, when I started the podcast and YouTube channel, it was all based on my own struggles giving presentations in front of management. I worked as a product development engineer, and every month I had to give project status updates on the project I was working on in front of senior management, CEO, CTO, CMO, C fill in the blanco, all these C-level people in the conference room, and I do this on a monthly basis, and it wasn't pretty at first, and in fact, my project ended up getting canceled, and this was over 15 years ago at this point, and I still think back to that time, and perhaps if I was better at communicating in a way that these people could understand, that maybe that they could have that project out right now making millions of dollars, but I guess we'll never know.
And you're absolutely right. And like you would ask a manager, you will ask an engineer to present, as you said, at the C-suite level, and and then, or you would ask to present at the board level. And very, very often, like the technical would look at, okay, it's the layer above, and we'll have tendency to basically deliver the same message, to a C-suite or in the boardroom, while in reality the audience is completely different. So the way I look at it is, it's not so much about what because most of the technical expert are expert matters, right? So they understand nut and bolts of their domain, on the technical domain. what is the issue is is to not understanding the audience in the sense that it's not about what you know, it's about what they need to know, and your ability to adjust your message to what do they need to know. A director, a board members is not the same level of the details, the same subject, the same presenter, the same expert. The difference is in the level of the details and your audience. So this is the biggest struggle in my view that I witness from technical is the ability to stop thinking that I need to deliver what I know rather than I need to deliver an answer or meet the need of the audience of what they need to know. Because if you don't, and especially in a boardroom, you don't want to introduce level of details that that then what do you do with it, right? So or depending on your stakeholders externally. And this morning was an example of it where we're talking about water at one of our mine. Okay, so how do you address the topic of water treatment, water balance, discharge and no discharge and so forth. And, internally we went down, like super rabbit hole in the details. But then when you present this internally, depending of above, below, is it a stakeholders like First Nations partners and so forth, what really matters at the different level is completely different. Couldn't care less. Some people wouldn't care less about the details of a water balance, and the element in it more than others will care about, okay, is there's a discharge or not. So let's address this. So it's a complete different layers of detail. But this is what I see is the biggest struggle is to not understand what is the deliverable to a specific audience, because the person knows what he knows and has tendency just to transfer into a presentation his knowledge rather than what the person needs to know. So you understand that concept, and over time you get very good and delivering at a different layer, a message. So that's the practice, but that's probably the fundamental understanding here to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you were talking, Renaud, it made me think about you mentioned various different stakeholders and what they need from a presentation. If you were a technical person, how would you go about presenting to a mixed audience where you have people that want different things?
Well, this is the this is interesting. This is probably the most challenging and we see that a lot. I do like PDAC, for instance, here in Toronto. You see that a lot, right? So you have one topic of interest. So you would have stakeholders coming at the presentation, whether it's a fireside chat, whether it's a presentation on the podium, and you would have expert coming in. So they want to know the detail of it, and you have the person interested just to hear what mining is thinking when it comes, to First Nations relationship, for instance. It's a complete difference. And and those are very challenging, to be very frank. So I think the person managing or monitoring a debate has to be very very good when addressing questions and the different level of detail to fit the room and read the room and being capable to address. But there is not a fit for all type of presentation. Sometimes you just need to be, in the fairway and and use a Q&A, to be a little more specific. But in this case, my approach is to stay as much as possible neutral in the middle, type of fairway. You want to give just a level of detail that satisfy the audience that are very technical, but you don't want to bury them, in the details where you lose completely the other one that just try to understand the concept of it. The best presentation to me is with a specific group of stakeholders where you could really understand them, learn them, and study the group you're going to be presenting to, so you could adapt. But it's not always possible, as you say, and that's happened a lot in those conferences where you have a mixed group of people. So you try to balance. You better, you get better, a year after year after year, on doing so, and the feedback as well. I like feedback. A lot of times, presenters deliver and not, don't try to get the feedback. I think feedback is very important always to adjust.
Yeah, 100%. And practice makes progress, that's for sure.
Mhm.
If you're, what misconceptions do you think business-minded people have about technical people, and how does that shape company decisions?
Misconcept, I'm not sure about so much of the misconcept. In what I do, I come with a technical background, so I think it's important, that you give the sense to your audience, an investment community, that you understand what you're talking about. You're not just depending, on on others, and so you're an expert subject matter, in what you discuss, but you want to keep as well, the you know the level of conversations to also give the sense that you have this detailed expertise in your organizations, that you use when it's time to. I don't I, I don't see that this like a fit for all, to be very frank. I think how does it shape the organization is you must make sure that you have in your organization expert matters in every single aspect of it. You cannot have generalists, all across. It doesn't really work. You want to give the sense that you're fully covered, and what you don't know, you allow others to come and contribute, to the presentation. So giving the sense that you're very good and expert, in the domain is one thing, but I think it's the force of an organization that makes, the expertise that forms the expertise. And if you're a CEO and you need to give the sense that you're leading an organization that has very strong operational technical ability, you want to be capable, to showcase and make sure they understand you do have this. But I would always recommend to not trip, and too many details, because at the end of the day, you usually have 15, 20 minutes, to deliver a key message, and you don't have the time to go to the rabbit hole. You just make sure your audience understands that you do have this expertise, and you keep those for the offside, offline type of conversation if you want to go down to the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What role do you think storytelling has in a technical person addressing a non-technical group such as a board or an executive team, Renaud?
Sorry, did you say storytelling?
Yes.
This is the biggest skill in my view, of a leader, is the ability to tell the story. More than I think everyone will get very bored if you read the book, and it's all about, like scientific terminologies and all that. Is how do you take a very complex situations, and we see this a lot with the creations of the AI. Huh? That's what AI does a lot, like it takes very complex matters and the 30, 50 pages and make it like a story and a 2 pages type of story. This is not all technical people that has this ability to take a very complex, and turn it into a story, a telling. I think you don't want to be too superficial. You mentioned board, for instance. I think it doesn't really work too well if you're just too superficial. You need to address complex situations, so you need to be capable, to address some more complex questions and so forth. But a storytelling, like especially when you address certain level of stakeholder, is the most, in my view, powerful way to make complex situation into a simple way. What is the story behind this? If you cannot explain to someone in an elevator in a 2-minute pitch what is really about, then it would be difficult to deliver a 15-20 minutes, because you take a very complex and and you turn it into a 15-20 minute presentations. But at the end of the day, what's the story behind? And you need to be very capable to summarize this, and get the attention on a 2-minute hit elevator pitch type of. This is not something that comes overnight. We're not trained for that. At the university, we're not trained, to become, technical people that are capable to tell, like technical matters and to turn it into a story. So you learn this over time, and it comes, with who your mentor, and it's not just, sometimes technical people believe that, a great mentor will be like only engineers and technical experts and all that. But as you advance in your career and you see yourself doing like some supervisions and management and eventually C-suite at a corporate, and turn your role of technical role into a leader role. You also need that training part of it, and that is not something that comes with the title of an engineer or geologist or any technician's person. You have to learn the skills too. So my approach is your training, your ability to develop yourself as a professional is equally important, or your ability of to interact with people, as much as your ability to explain technically or to solve technically situations. And we underestimate this aspect. Sometimes you're already too advanced in your career when you had the chance to do a little bit more of senior management level. And then you start then put, on development program, to improve those skills, where it should be right from the day one, where you should pay attention to those development skills as well, because they would be necessary at some point down the road. So those are principles that I have applied to myself at the very early days. I would surround myself with great engineer, but I would also surround myself, with great people skills as well. They're equally important to me.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Renaud. And I mentioned earlier about my struggles giving presentations in front of management, and me seeing the importance of getting better at it after my project got canceled. That definitely was the wake up call that I needed. But I'd be curious, if you had to give advice to a technical person, perhaps early in their career, and they're good at their job technically, but their communication skills aren't the best, but they don't see the benefit of improving at them because they think that them being good technically is what they were hired to do. What would you say to them to convince them that becoming a better communicator would be in their best interest?
So the best advice I would say is, when for the biggest mistake you would see, from technical presenters and delivering, to upper level presentations, is the reading of the slides that I call. Okay, this is I see you're laughing because you know exactly what I'm going with this. Is there something, and I say it with with a lot of respect and love, and almost in a funny way, because we've all been there, right? We've all been that. You present, you put the slides on the wall, and then you go point by point and you literally read the material on the wall, and then your audience is looking at you and it's that, I can read. That's not what I'm expecting, is this ability to basically like deliver your presentations without even like looking at, because that's the storytelling behind. This is what's missing. Everyone can read. No, you don't need someone to translate. And it's not the point. It's like you need to be good at the very early days to being capable to put what is your key point on each of those. Forget about what's written there. What is the takeaway? What do you want your audience to take away from these slides? And that's what you need to speak about, not read the slide. This is very, very annoying in a way, for your audience. Now, again, it depends on the audience. Sometimes it could be very, very specialist. And I'm sure if you address to a PhDs, in nuclear or whatever, and your presentations about that, yeah, you may have to touch, on all the details. But this is the biggest, I would say, room of improvement of most of the technical and early is the addressing a level above. So by definitions, you would think that what they need to know is that, what really matters in their environment. It's not so much. So what I've seen and noticed as well is the new generations are way, way better in doing this. And the reason being is I think organizations are more fluid or more dynamic or more like open door type of thing. So you learn at the very early days. So here, for instance, like we have maybe 10, 15 students, for the summer. I remember when I was there and I would probably, spend the whole summer without even having an interactions, with the C-suite and so forth. Now it's a different dynamic. Now you learn at the very early age, to interact and being comfortable and expressing yourself. So you learn at the very early days those skills of interpersonal type, at different level and so forth. So that I think that's kind of help a lot. I would have frozen, like by when I was like 19, 20 years old, and study, and I would have like, oh my God, I'm sitting with the CEO today. You don't impress with that. This is not about, it's more a dynamic fluid type of. So once you understand that, so you apply the same principle in a presentation, right? So it's the story again behind. And learn to make your point on every single slide rather than reading it. Let's start there as a first step. Be good at it. And then eventually, it becomes a link from one to another slide. And then, whoops, it becomes a story rather than a reading. And and you could be very good at it at a very early stage. And I've noticed that in the last few years, interacting more with young students or graduated, they're becoming extremely good, in delivering presentations to upper level at the very early stage. And I think that comes with the confidence as well of being capable on a day-to-day to interact as well. And then you translate that skills into a boardroom, and it's really not different.
Yeah, yeah. I was laughing when you were talking, Renaud, about the reading slides because looking back, that's one of the reasons I'm sure I wasn't doing all that great giving those presentations in front of management because I would do exactly that. I would read slides, and you said that people would be looking at you, but sometimes when I would look up from reading the slides, they weren't looking at me at all. They were looking at their phones, they're looking at their computers, they're staring off into space. Some might even be, be nodding off. It'd be everything but looking at the slides, or they're looking at me read the slides. But you're absolutely
And that's a relationship with your audience, right? I mean, if you're standing there and you're presenting the slides and they can read it, so they're expecting from you is what are you adding by being there physically? That is it an anecdote about something? Is it a personal experience about something? Is it like the third line is the part, whatever it is? They take the time to go and sit and listen to you instead of just reading your presentation. It's because they're expecting you're going to be adding something that it's not necessarily written the way. It's your perspective of it, not the reading of it. It sounds like easy, just laughing and talking about it, but the reality is the key success is the key.
Yeah, again, I'm laughing again based on something you said earlier about, we all could read. And you're right. If you gotten to that point of your career, I would hope you'd be able to read. But then, yes, if you're there as the presenter and people can read what's on the slides, what are you, as you said, what are you adding to the slides so that I, as someone in the audience, can't say, I could have just taken these slides to my desk and read them at my own time. I didn't have to sit here and watch you read what I can also read. It has to be a good use of both of our time.
And maybe, like it's not everyone that would be expert in this. Some others are, like in myself, like I'm not someone, it's kind of strange, being a CEO and saying this, but the reality is I'm not someone that likes to read a lot. I like to listen. I like to experience things. I like to be with my boots on the ground, and go and see and touch, and so if I'm sitting there and you send me material to read across, yeah, I'm going to read the material, but I'm really looking forward, just like an audiobook, like I'm an audiobook guy more than a reader. Wow, because this is I'm expecting the energy, the feelings, of the person, the belief, and what is written there and how, the person comes to me with that story. Some are very good, to write those big, long article and paper that are very technical, like this is not what is my skill. So we all have a different approach, but at the end of the day, the balance is the best. I think in a career, you must be capable, to address the technicality with technical people where, be my guest, be very detailed and all. But as you advance in your career, it's absolutely crucial that you're capable as well to adapt your messaging, to your audience. And this is something you need to practice. Doesn't come naturally because we're all start in the same place. We think that they want to hear what you know. No. It's usually well presented in the paper and the report and all that. Is the beyond that. Tell
Yeah.
me about your experience to that topic. Basically.
Yep, 100% Renaud. And I also like audiobooks, but I also try to read something every day just to make sure I can still do it.
There is no shortage of reading, like we're all buried by emails and all that, and we go through this and when the topic becomes a little bit more complex, so you ended up, like, okay, so let's set a 30 meetings, and a 1 hour meeting, and let's, talk about this. And but there is no shortage of opportunity, to read. But for me, what works the most is the contact. It's the tell me what you say type of, right? Not tell me what's written there. Tell me what you see. And this is the most powerful in my way to interact is your ability to answer the questions what you see, because that's what I want to hear. That's what I need to know.
Yep, 100%. This has been a great conversation, Renaud. Thanks for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Thank you so much, and all the best for you as well and your program, and appreciate the invitation today.
Great. Again, my name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Renaud.
Thanks.